So thank you very much. This is the last two sessions of the day, and this panel is basically talking about programmatic as part of the omni-channel mix. Now, I thought Matt Hardy's presentation was excellent, basically talking about his fragmented journey through his daily media, and the fact that traditional media doesn't have any sort of input into his daily sort of activity, and that would be reflective of myself as well, and a lot of people in this room. So before we jump into this, let's let the panelists introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll just jump straight into discussion. Jay.
Sure. My name's Jay Stevens. I'm the CRO of Adform, which I've been in the chair for 3 weeks. So, and one of those weeks was Cannes, so I don't hold it against me.
Jay spoke here before as a Rubicon man, and he's at Adform. So a round of applause for Jay and his new role. Hey, Jay.
Thanks, Ciaran.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Mackenzie, and I head up data technology and innovation for Publicis Media, which is the newly formed practice that's designed to make programmatic and data-driven strategies more accessible to the agency brands. So, rather like Jay, I've been in the role for all of 1 month.
Round of applause.
Yeah.
It's like AA.
Michel de Rijk. I work for a company called Xaxis. Been in the role for 4.5 years.
No round of applause there for Michel, sorry.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Bevans. I work for Yahoo. I've actually been with Yahoo for 10 years. 5 years in the US and 5 years overseas. So
and soon to be a Verizon employee. Okay.
No comment on that. But AOL guys are buying me drinks later, I hear.
All right. Anyway, so let's talk about Matt's journey through his daily activity, right? Obviously, let's start with the agency point of view. Is programmatic a way to buy across disparate media? Matt's conclusion at the end of his presentation was programmatic is the only way to hit him across all these different channels. Is that actually the case?
It's not the only way to hit him, but I think the most alarming thing about that presentation is how similar I am to Matt, except I don't get to walk to work. I think the answer to that question is yes. I mean, how else are you going to be able to act on the data as it's made available to you across a disparate number of channels? The reality is, though, that potential can only be accessible through a technology stack, and that has to be driven by a DMP. So the DMP gives you the aggregate view of the consumer and allows you to act on the information that's being made available. So yes, the answer is programmatic does enable it, but it's a multitude of different technologies that needs to come into play.
All right, DMP seems to be the connected tissue for this entire space. How important is? I mean, I guess all the people in this panel have access to a DMP, either it's a owned and operated piece of technology or they work with a partner. So how important is the DMP in that role? I'm just kind of curious. How important is that piece of technology in sort of connecting all the different disparate pieces together?
I'd say it's critical.
Oh, Jay, you want to go? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. But I mean, it is something which if you look at what is the bridge between what is MarTech and AdTech, the DMP is that bridge. And it's if we look at what's happened in the space overall on the MarTech side and the CRM side, they are gradually coming into our business and into online. First with the purchase of email software providers, and then increasingly with DMPs. So it makes a natural progression that the DMP is the next step, or the DSP is the next step when it's linked to those CRM files and records that are in those files.
Michel, Turbine, that was talked about a lot by the Xaxis boys at Cannes, and on a recent interview as well with your CEO. How important is that piece of technology to making things work across the different channels for you guys?
Now, I mean, Turbine, which is our proprietary DMP, as you know, where you refer to, is obviously extremely important. But I think that we also should not make it more important than it is. I think there's a lot of talk around DMPs right now, But if you really look at the market and really look at the amount of brands who really understand how to apply a DMP, what to do with it, and how to use it for their business, it's at the moment still very limited. I think there's a lot of sort of work to do there and education to do there. Our DMP is not an advertiser side DMP. We love to work with brands who understand their value of their data and want to bring their data into their campaign strategies. And we advise them to work with other more client-side DMP companies. And we connect with that. So we're more on the supply side of the media spectrum in that sense.
So the DMP you have is more publisher side focused. Okay. Mike, talk about sort of your cross-device proposition. How are you guys making all these disparate channels work together?
Yeah, for us, for Yahoo, cross-device is critical. And actually, I hear a lot about walled gardens. People probably don't know. Yahoo globally, we have about 650 million people mapped to 2 or more devices. And we've done that both in a deterministic and probabilistic, so we use both. Where we have logged in, we do that. Where we don't, we use algorithms. And people talk about probabilistic. The key to that is the whole GIGO principle, right? If garbage in, garbage out, if you don't have good inputs, you can't do a good probabilistic model. We get about 165 billion data points from our users at Yahoo, so we feel like we've got a good data set to actually build out that model. So cross-devices for us is critical. The way I look at digital marketing, or just marketing in general, is audience-centric and device and format agnostic, right? So very simple. If you think about it from that perspective, cross-device is critical.
So talk about probabilistic for a minute, right? It's still a probability that it might be that user. So how do you sort of sell that into your clients? Are they happy versus the deterministic data that others might have?
Yeah, how we sell it in is we basically prove it works, right? And so we see, I just saw a case study that we finished up. We saw an 88% uplift in conversions for the cross-device campaign that we ran. So versus just on PC only, right? So that itself shows that it works, and that's how you prove it works for a client.
I think skill is also a matter there, right?
Sorry?
A skill is also relevant there. I mean, a lot of companies need to do probabilistic because it gives more skill to sort of the campaign size and the opportunity to actually reach these people.
But is it sort of like a solution to the walled garden issue? I know we've talked about walled gardens all day, open versus closed. But the lack of interoperability between the Amazons of the world, the Facebooks of the world, the Googles of the world, and all the other little sort of data kingdoms that are operational in the world, that probabilistic then is potentially the only way that we can make this work. Is that the case, Jay?
To get that scale, yeah.
Yeah. So is the case that this is going to be the de facto way that we target across all these different channels?
I'm not sure I fully agree with that, to be honest. I think it's not an either or, it's an and conversation. I think the reality is the walled gardens exist. They've got massive data sets, they've got massive inventory pools, and they offer product solutions that work, especially in this part of the world. And it's going to be very hard to turn that around. So I think you have to have an approach which allows you to operate across a multitude of different suppliers and providers and walled gardens, and you have to invest in a technology that can do that for you. So rather like Xaxis, we've invested in a proprietary DMP. We've built an operating system that works across different technologies, and so we're trying to, it's essentially how we see the role of the agency is to provide that intermediary that leverages every opportunity in the market.
And how's your DMP working? Is it just basically taking all the data points together, ingesting, segmentation? Is that the way your DMP works on our data?
But can you also do that with the walled gardens?
No, well, there's limitations to what we can ingest from the walled gardens, obviously. But
then does your frequency capping suffer because you might serve an ad to a user in the Facebook ecosystem, the Google ecosystem, the Amazon ecosystem, and then the programmatic ecosystem, and all the other ecosystems? Surely that's a wastage of client spend.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why a holy trinity of a DMP, DSP, and ad server combined can help mitigate some of those frequency cap issues.
So,
but still not over the walled gardens,
right?
So we do have an issue here that we can't access this data. I'm just curious to see from an agency perspective, Do you sit with Facebook and Google and push back a little bit and saying, guys, we can't make this work. Oh, we can make it up to a point, but we want to make it work properly. And can we have access to specific data? I mean, are those conversations happening at an agency level?
They're happening, yeah, typically at a global
How does that go?
At a global level. They don't go all that well, to be honest, and it's often a huge source of frustration. But it is what it is. The data that's being generated is useful. The inventory is available there, and there is a tendency to to go for the scale, which is what we need here in APAC, right? So at the moment, we don't have an unlimited choice of what's available in the programmatic context, and that's the reason why these players are so dominant out here.
But when I talk to clients, they're building out, because of these walled gardens, they're building out their own DMPs, they're building out their own systems, their own platforms, because they need to see cross campaigns, they need to see holistically, right? So I think right now, the power of Facebook and Google from a walled garden perspective is very high. I think that'll probably diminish over time as advertisers and bigger players and agencies as well. But also there's open systems. Yahoo is an open system. There's others as well, where you can take a depth and breadth of data and actually play it across any inventory with the exception of those walled gardens.
Michel's smiling there. Is it really an open system, Michel? You were kind of like grinning away to yourself. Yeah, whatever.
No, I was thinking about ATS last year in Yahoo in a panel here. But I don't think Yahoo was as...
It was good times, I think, yeah?
Yeah, they were good.
There were better times.
At that time, we were a little bit bigger and more successful. Sorry, that's an open door.
No, listen, play nice, lads.
But
come on.
I think things didn't really change over the last year or so. I mean, these walled gardens have been there for a while, and they're growing, and we see that they have massive traction with our brands. And even if you're from an agency group perspective says, we don't want to work with these walled gardens because they are closed. The reality is that they're there and they're there to stay, and that's not going to change. I mean, from a Xaxis perspective, one of the things that we've done is, okay, how do we make sure that apart from sort of all the sort of programmatic buying that we do, that we also look at these walled gardens and how can we make sure that we bring that efficiency across the total buy, and especially also the insights across the total buy of these brands. One of the ways for us to do that is that we've been successful with closing a deal with Google, so we have the ability to connect Turbine to, for example, the YouTube buys, so really sort of overlay our data sets into YouTube. It's something we just launched, and Facebook and Amazon are there to follow in that line as well. So the walled gardens are there, but I do think there are strategic ways to work together.
And are they making you use DBM to buy that inventory?
Yeah, of course they make which is, I mean, that...
My way or the highway?
No, but I totally agree with that, and I think the
So
Google...
you did a deal and then they said you acquiesced to their way of working, basically.
I think the Google team knows pretty well how I think about them and DBM.
How do you feel? How do you feel about them, Michel? Just I don't. It's gonna slip my mind.
Let's go through all the companies. How do you feel about everyone? Let's just get it out there. Everybody else stand up. Who do you work for?
That's only Google and Facebook I have that with. No, but we also sort of understand that they are there to stay. So we've been able to find a way to work together. And yes, we have to work with DBM, but eventually, to be honest, I don't really care which DSP we use, but because for me the DSP is just a pipe, right? And for us the differentiator is our DMP turbine. And that's where the data sits, and that's where the value for the client sits. And ideally, I would like to work with a minimum amount of platforms to access that inventory, more from an efficiency from operational point of view as well. But if I, for specific buyers, have to use a different platform because that inventory is only available through that platform and my clients really want to have that, then so be it. And then we have to work through DBM, as long as I'm able to connect Turbine to it.
So that's a WPP solution. They're able to do that. What about the rest of us? Is it? I mean, we've talked today about publisher co-ops,
yep.
And obviously you were at Rubicon for many years and were responsible for many international co-ops. Is this the idea of a publisher data co-op sort of a fix for this potentially? Like,
absolutely. I mean, this is and that's one of the critical components of, I would say, where the dozen, Rick can correct me, but I've seen the dozen publisher cooperatives that are on the Rubicon platform today. They're part of the value proposition is them adding and importing and appending all of their data assets into one master file. it's definitely something that we're seeing all over the world, and obviously part of the reason why the Germans came together to create eMetric, and it's not just the publisher information and the publisher data that's so important from a behavioral perspective and their login data, but it's then also Deutsche Telekom, who's also a partner in that, making that work together. And there's look, there's no secret as to why Verizon is interested in potentially acquiring Yahoo. There's no, obviously why they bought AOL. Telenor buying Tapad.
Yeah.
I mean, another great example of the cross-device graph being the central point, not necessarily obviously the media buying and selling part of it is valuable, but the cross-device graph was the rationale for that acquisition.
Jonathan, would you like to see more data co-ops that you can be able to tap in and use that data for cross-device campaigns?
Yeah, definitely. I think the more data we can get our hands on, the better, really. I think third-party data in this part of the world's been somewhat disappointing. I don't know what the room feels about that, but
why is that?
I think it's a scale issue. I think you end up buying a cookie pool off a provider, and everyone's competing for the same audience, and it just doesn't deliver the expected performance based on the there's no value exchange there. But so we need more data. We need to enrich our own first-party data, and so the publisher co-ops are the way to go, I can imagine. I guess the cynical side of me feels that there isn't typically those levels of collaboration or cooperation that happen in the marketplaces in Asia. Everyone's fairly territorial, proprietary, and so I think the challenge is not necessarily in the facilitation of those through technology, it's more through the business issues and the deals that need to be struck.
Also, I think a lot of publishers need to get over the fear of programmatic. I mean, I still work with publishers across the world, and they're like, programmatic is just going to kill our business. But they don't understand how to engage with it, what to do with data, what to do with PMPs, how to work with, the buy side. It's just this fear of, all I'm going to do is sell my stuff cheaply, and that's just not the case.
How do you change that mindset? I mean, we had the great Freudian slip here today, not problematic. Not once, but twice he said it. So how do you change that mindset? How do you get publishers to start thinking about the bigger picture? I mean, particularly around data, which is such an important, as you pointed out, first-party data is king. Third-party data over here is shit, apparently.
Well, I think it's education, and it's getting over that fear of the unknown. And that's a lot of it. And actually, companies like what Adform and Rubicon has done, with publishers to educate them, I think is the way to go. But there's still a lot of work that needs to happen globally.
Rijk, do you see this happening, Michel? Do you see this happening on the buy side as well? Like Adobe, you're obviously spearheading this whole idea of a data co-op among brands. Is this going to be one of the ideas that big brands will pool their data to maybe be able to build a model on top of that?
Well, I think that even brands are more careful about it because they really see their data as their valuable assets. And sharing that in a co-op, I don't see it happening a lot, and I don't expect it to happen a lot. I mean, in general, I think that every initiative that brings more data to the industry, or it sort of creates more data so we can apply that to campaign strategies is welcome. And if it comes from the publisher side, or if it comes from the brand side. Ideally from the brand side, because I think there's a lot of value there. But I think there's still so much work to do with brands just understanding, what the value of their data is, and if they, why and how they should bring that to their campaign strategies. And I think we're still got a long way to go there.
Jonathan, there was some interesting stuff at Cannes this year. Spotify launched their programmatic audio. Lots of new channels coming into the space. Let's talk about that for a minute. It's quite exciting. Digital out of home, audio, radio. There seem to be huge areas for programmatic. I know that Xaxis, but let's just talk about the opportunity around that. What are you doing around those new areas?
I wish I could have come to Cannes. I mean,
oh God!
Don't pull that face.
Don't blindside me like that. Seriously, finish it very quickly. Oh God! Anyway,
all right, where to go from there?
Yeah, where can you go from there?
Listen, I think there are a few challenges to enabling some of those solutions in this part of the world, and that's, yes, Spotify exists, and I think, there's a lot of digital audio that exists, but at the moment it's all in disparate channels here, there, and everywhere. And we look with envy at the likes of Global launching DAX in Europe and having, I don't know, millions of users, 140 million streams or whatever across podcast, radio, and streaming services like Spotify. But here it's just not that accessible. And when it is accessible, there isn't sufficient scale. And we've got that chicken and egg conundrum where, our advertisers want to buy reach, they want to buy impact. And a lot of these solutions are so new on the scene and so difficult to make happen that the delivery is therefore usually disappointing.
So is that the case? That the frustration is that these things are not going to happen very quickly? These new channels?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Listen, I think there's a huge amount of desire to try things out, but there's equally an even greater fear of failure in this part of the world. And those things are acting as pretty big barriers to testing some of these technologies that exist.
I think we also need to be realistic about it, because I think when we launch these products in a couple of markets, and especially in Australia, where our digital radio product runs pretty well, we can launch all these amazing products and try to connect all these different channels together. But if we go back to our brands and to our clients about what they really want to do and how they really look at programmatic at this stage, is that the majority of our briefs still come in with KPIs that are totally irrelevant for these other channels.
So what are they largely just all performance CPA
there's a lot of
wise?
performance. They still see, we're generalizing here, or I'm generalizing here, but I still see a lot of brands who are just moving into programmatic, which is already worrying if they use it that way, but move into programmatic just because it's a more efficient media buy. And as long as that's the mindset, and we don't look at the benefits that programmatic brings and making it omni-channel, connecting all the things, reaching specific audiences, as long as brands are not embracing that, and don't get me wrong, there are exceptions, and thankfully exceptions in this room as well, but as long as they don't embrace that and keep chasing the wrong metrics, we're not going to change that. We're not going to all of a sudden have amazing digital out-of-home or radio being incorporated in these media plans.
Well, how do you change that mindset, though? I mean, this has been around nearly for 8 years, and I think
it's I'll give you an example. We got a client in one of our markets where they wanted to have, they were running a campaign, they were promoting an app, and we're talking to the marketeer, and the marketeer says, I want you to deliver traffic, pure traffic, on my website or eventually on my app. Okay, but what do you want to happen? What do you want that happens after that traffic? Well, there needs to be a sign-up. Okay, so can we at least look at the amount of sign-ups that come out of that traffic? No, that's not my KPI. I'm here to generate traffic, and the actual sign-up is my colleague who sits around the corner. So I'm not responsible for that. And as long as the brands at the top are not making that change, then it's not going to happen on sort of the operational level either. And
that's just the top of the funnel, right? We're not even talking about the rest of the customer journey through the life cycle, and in terms of cross-sell and upsell and reactivation of fallow users, et cetera.
There's a very simple example of that that's happening every other day.
I think digital, digital still, I hear so much about the funnel, and we all love the funnel. But if you look at it from a marketing...
I love the funnel.
Yeah, exactly, right? But I actually hate the funnel, because what the concept is, you take somebody, you shove them in the top of the funnel, and then you pound the hell out of them with ads.
Get in there.
Until they get to the bottom, and then when they're done, you're like, yes, you hit that KPI, whatever that is. But for those who studied marketing, there's this customer life cycle. This, you want to have a relationship with this customer. There's awareness, there's purchase, there's consideration, there's brand building. I think we need to change that mindset that digital is a way to actually affect that, as opposed to just cramming people down a funnel and then, damn, we got them out. Yes, let's get to the next one.
We sit in these panels all the time and we talk about this. Like, there was a market on today saying you guys. Tech vendors. I think the Australians obviously say vendors. I don't know why. It's French. Tech vendors. He was pointing fingers at the tech vendors, and he was pointing fingers at the agencies. So where is this disconnect happening? Like, I mean, clearly there needs to be sort of a mindset change on the marketing side, not just our side as well. So how do we affect that change? So do you need to be a CMO? You need to get a job as a CMO.
I'd love one. Are you offering? I think look, there are a lot of moving parts, and until all those moving parts are moving in sync, it's not going to be very easy to make omni-channel happen, right? So you need our clients' businesses to be structured in a way that think about the user experience and not about channel planning. You need creative agencies building ads to deliver at the right message, right time, right place, right device, rather than building beautiful TVCs that cost a fortune and thinking only in a campaign mentality. And then you need the tech all plugged into each other. So, whether it's radio or TV or mobile, whether it's being fed or powered by a DMP, it all has to work together in sync. And at the moment, it's quite a long way from being in sync.
Why is it not happening now? I tell you, I'm getting frustrated. Why is it not working?
I think
8 years.
It's got to be at the strategy level. I mean, that's ultimately where it comes down to. And I started the first 8 years of my career in digital selling email software and ECRM software. And when I went into media, I was incredibly struck by the difference and the division that existed between above the line and below the line activities. And that line has to erase somewhere, and the marketer has to be, and the strategic agency and strategic comms have to be the one to erase it, because otherwise we're not going to realize the full potential of what essentially is Peppers and Rogers one-to-one marketing.
I think the strategy is one thing. I think there's a big accountability issue as well, and it's kind of to Michel's point about the value or the success metrics. Because at the moment, if everything's driven by price, it's very easy to just silo everything off into a channel, make sure you're getting the cheapest possible cost. Whereas if you shift it to kind of a value measurement and try and understand how it all works together to deliver against a business KPI, then
like a sales basic KPI.
Yeah,
if I spend
value.
X amount, I would shift.
to Damien's point earlier, if you tell me how I'm going to get 1 million customers, then I'll invest in that.
But is that what we're doing wrong then? We're not articulating that to the client, basically. Michel, is that the case? We're not articulating
I think
that.
we're articulating it, but I'm not sure that we always talk at the right level with the clients about it, and are able to convince at a CMO level these clients that they need to change their mindset into it.
But that's also the media agencies usually are at the top of the funnel, right? Not necessarily when it comes down to CRM, which is ultimately that stuff when we talk about the customer lifecycle journey, that is actually being run by the people who are, that manage the database.
So, that leads us on to the next question about being able to connect our activity online to offline sales. Are we any closer to making that happen? I know that Facebook have tried to basically link Facebook media buys to specific offline activity. Are we getting closer to that holy grail? Is that the thing that will sort of complete the loop?
Definitely. Cardlytics has raised a tremendous amount of money in the U.S. and is doing exactly this by matching the data of the in-store purchases back into the attribution and looking at the ROI from the various channels, and they're integrated in with a number of leading DSPs.
John, is this something you're doing? Is this something you're looking at, or doing?
It's something we want to do, definitely. It is getting closer. But the challenge out here is the number of partners you've got to work with to onboard CRM data, to ingest the first party data and match that to something that's happening offline. It's quite a long way. We've still got some markets, and I'm not talking about Publicis market. I'm talking about markets generally where advertisers don't want to invest in ad serving. So if you're not even doing the basic steps to get your data in order, you're going to be a long, long way from being able to merge your offline with your online and make more sense of your marketing dollars. It's just there's a bit of a way to go.
Michel, can you write some script from Excel sheets? Is that how you sort of measure campaigns?
No, but I agree to John as well. I think there are still a lot of basics to be done in a lot of markets to connect the dots. But I think especially on connecting retail, there will be some announcements from our side coming pretty soon, which.
Can you
help
allude to that on stage?
No.
Okay.
Off the record, I assume. Yeah.
Okay, over beers. Mike, connect these dots is important, obviously.
Yeah.
And if we can show that activity online is actually leading to offline activity, surely there's an upside for the industry there.
Yeah, there is, and we're doing a lot of things. We're actually doing a lot. If you didn't know, we actually look at commercial emails. We look at emails from any purchases that come back, and we're now able to tie those back to campaigns. So we see someone purchase something within their email, and we know they've been exposed to a campaign, at least within our realm. We can actually tie that back now, and there's a lot of stuff. I think it is happening more in the U.S. now. I think it's because the infrastructure, the data sets are just not in the rest of the world yet, but there's a lot happening, at least on our side, and we're seeing great success actually tying that offline back.
And I mean, we've run out of time here, but one last question then, specific regional question. How do we move the conversation along? Like, I would like to see Michel on stage with a marketer next year talking about how he's able to, how he's basically used programmatic to sell more cars, to sell more bottles of this delicious AOL water. I mean, how do we get to that point? Are we close to that point, or will we have to do another 8 ATS Singapore events before we get there?
I hope not.
What?
So Michel, you have an assignment. You have to solve the world's problems in 12 months. So we're not back here now.
Yeah, just give me a 30-minute slot next year, and I'll get it done. No, there's
Everybody had left the room by then. You've insulted half the town, like.
it will be different. I mean, I think we need a few good examples where brands are really willing to take that risk and really go on that journey with their partner. Let it be a tech partner, or let it be their agency partner, or let it be a combination of both, and really are willing to take that risk. And I think the industry is ready for it. We just have to find the right examples for that. And I have the feeling that there are a few brands who are close to ready for that.
Jonathan, is there any risk takers in the room? Maybe there's a brand later on who wants to.
I hope so.
Go all in.
And I think it's exactly right. We've got to embrace these like an innovation lab. We've got to test stuff out. We've got to see what works. We've got to see what breaks, and then we've got to put stuff into scalable action. It's going to take a lot of investment in tech, in talent, and it's going to need the industry as a whole, not just media side, tech side. It's got to rely on the clients and all the creative side to get involved with that as well. So, it's a big ask, but everyone wants to get there. I think we just need a bit more collaboration.
We're so close, people. So close. Round of applause for our panel. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, Ciaran.